Hello fellow Love and Deepspace lovelies, it's so nice to have you here! My name is Peach and welcome to the second video of Combat Basics of Love and Deepspace. Today we will be talking all about protocores and stats. Before we begin, I recommend you go grab some yummy snacks, a little beverage and get comfy cause this will be a long one. So make sure to like and subscribe as it encourages me to keep doing detailed videos like this about Love and Deepspace combat. Some quick heads up before we start. First, I'm not an expert, I'm just a combat nerd, so take my insights as a friendly guidance. Second, any quotes or resources I reference will be shown on screen and the links will be in the description. Third, we are keeping things neutral, so no favorite love interests are considered for these guides. Alright, with that out of the way, let's jump in. Protocores. Protocores are like the artifacts of the memories that you can equip on the cards to make them more powerful. There are 4 types or shapes of protocores, each being available in all the Stelactrum colors and in 3 rarities. To farm from protocores, you'll have to keep in mind that each day of the week has a specific core hunt area available, with the exception of Sundays when all the areas are available for farming. Mondays and Thursdays you can farm red and green protocores, Tuesdays and Fridays blue and pink protocores, and Wednesday and Saturdays purple and yellow protocores. Rarity. As I said before, there are 3 rarities of protocores: blue for rare, purple for super rare, and gold for super rare. You should never upgrade blue protocores, cause same as with the 3-star memories, you'll soon start getting better ones and leave them behind. These ones though, we use them to upgrade the better protocores. With purple protocores, you can upgrade them if they have really good subsets or secondary attributes, but your goal should always be to replace them with golden protocores as soon as possible. Golden protocores are the ones we should be focusing our resources into, as they have the highest base stats out of all the rarities and therefore are the most worthy. The rarity of the protocores you get depend on the level of the area you're in. In level 1, you can only get blue protocores. From level 2 to 5, you can get blue protocores and purple protocores. And from level 6, there is a chance that you might get 1 golden protocore, with the percentage of probability increasing from getting 1 in level 7 to a guarantee of 2 golden protocores in level 10. Here is a table with the probable loot by level. With these probabilities, we can start to see hints of the difficulty of farming good protocores. Leveling. For leveling up our protocores, we need 2 things, gold and protocore EXP. We can use 2 EXP materials, other protocores and protocore energy. Same as with protocores, protocore energy comes in 3 rarities, rare, super rare, and super rare. With rare granting 50 protocore EXP, super rare 250, and super rare 1000 EXP. On the other hand, when we use protocores, rare ones grant 100 EXP, super rare grants 200, and golden ones grant 400 EXP. So EXP wise, the most worthy level to farm is level 10, which can give you a total of 1300 EXP between the protocores and the protocore energy you get, which cost 20 stamina per run. Now let's go over the shapes of the protocores. Each shape of protocore has a name, alpha for the diamond, beta for the cube, gamma for the star, and delta for the pyramid. They can be categorized by the type of memory that you can exclusively equip them into, solar protocores and lunar protocores. Alpha and beta protocores are the ones we can equip in solar memories. Alpha protocores have a fixed attribute that is flat HP, but beta on the other hand has 6 possible attributes. HP bonus, defense bonus, attack bonus, expedited energy boost, oath recovery boost, and oath strength. Gamma and delta are the protocores that we can use on lunar memories. Gamma protocores have a fixed stat of flat attack, while delta has 6 possible attributes just like beta protocores. HP bonus, defense bonus, attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage, and damage boost to weakened. Now, let's talk in depth about the stats in the protocores. Protocore stats. Let's start with the basics, HP, attack, and defense. HP are the health points. We can understand it as the amount of life we have, but expressed in numbers. The higher the HP, the more hits you can take. If it reaches 0, we are out. Attack can be understood as our strength. The higher the number, the harder we hit. This is the main source of our damage numbers. Defense is basically how sturdy our armor is. and translates in the reduction of damage we take when we are being attacked. The higher the number, the less damage we take from enemy hits. And finally, HP attack and defense bonuses are the percentage increase over the accumulation of the flat statistics we talked about just now. Crit rate and crit damage. Here, I want you to imagine having a baseball bat. This bat represents the damage of our attack plus attack bonus in the case of 11 Deepspace. Crit damage would be our bat, but with spikes. Now, crit rate is the probability represented in a percentage from 1 to 100 of the chances we have to land a hit with our bat with spikes. The closer we are to 100, the more chances we have to hit with our spiky bat instead of our normal bat. Crit damage would be the amount and size of spikes our bat has. The higher the percentage, the more damage we would do. For example, if we have a base damage of 100 and we have a crit damage of 200%, if we crit, we will do 200 damage instead of only 100 damage. Special stats. These are stats specific to Love and Deepspace battle mechanics, starting with Expedited Energy Boost. This is the percentage increase of the rate in which we recover the energy we use with our skill and resonance skill, aka the skills we use with the little stars in the bottom of our screen when we are in combat. Oath Recovery Boost. This is the percentage of increase in which we recover our energy to use Ardent Oath. The higher the percentage, the faster we recharge. Oath Strength. This is a percentage increase especially for the damage we do with Ardent Oath. Now, how much of each stat is good to have? Just like my favorite professor taught us to reply when asked engineering questions, it depends. So let's first start with the stats we would like for all love interests to have, our more universal stats, and then let's talk about the ones that are a bit more complicated to answer. Universal stats. These are the stats that will work with all the love interest. In simple, the stats are Attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage, damage boost to weakened, oath recovery boost, oath strength, and expedited energy boost. Attack and attack bonus. Like we saw in the memory video, all love interest companions 4 and 5 stars alike, their skills scale off at least one part of attack, so having attack is always welcomed. However, which one you want to look for depends if you are in early or mid to late game. If you're still in early game, you should look for flat attack. Considering that your memories are still not over level 40, the amount of attack you'll have will not be enough to see benefits from having lots of attack bonus substats, as the percentage of increase applies to the amount of flat attack that you have. But when you reach mid-game and start to level up your memories further and therefore increase the amount of flat attack that you have, looking for attack bonus is the way to go, as you will be able to make your big numbers even bigger. Now, as for how much attack you should strive to have, I will venture to say 2000 to 3000 attack for early game, 4000 to 5000 for mid-game, and for late game, go for over 5000. But here, depending on the companion, you can focus on looking for other attributes instead of only focusing on attack. Crit rate and crit damage. For these ones, I personally follow what I've learned from other games. We should strive to have a 1 to 2 ratio, 1 part of crit rate to 2 parts of crit damage. For example, if I have a 60% crit rate, I should strive to have double the amount in crit damage, and that would be 120%. But unlike in games like Genshin Impact, in Love and Deepspace the percentage of crit damage doesn't show from 0, but from 100%, being 100 our plain base damage. So, having that in mind, our 60 to 120 ratio translated to Love and Deepspace would be 60 crit rate to 220 crit damage, 100 being the base plus the additional 120 crit damage. But why this ratio? Why not focus everything on crit damage? Well, it is true that the higher the crit damage percentage, the more damage we will be able to do with our spiky bat. But if we have a small percentage of critical rate, we have very little chances of using our spiky bat that do big numbers, and instead we will be using our normal bat most of the time, making all our efforts of building crit damage in vain. So to be able to do big damage, we must increase our chances to do that big damage having this 1:2 ratio. Now, adding some more spice difficulty to the damage equation, crit rate and crit damage only apply to enemies that still have their shields up. Once their shields break, damage boost to weakened is the one in charge to boost our damage instead. So when going into a battle that doesn't have Stalactrum requirements, I would advise you to focus a little more on crit rate and crit damage, as the window of time that the enemies will be with their shields broken will be very short. So you can maximize your damage going for a good crit rate and crit damage ratio instead of focusing on damage boost to weakened in this case specifically. Personally, a good crit rate percentage would be to have over 50, but I would ideally go over 60%. Over 80% I would say is a little bit of an overkill, as that would imply to have god tier luck with the rolls and a lot of investment. But if you can, you go boo. From that crit rate, the crit damage should be doubled, but as I said earlier, like the base damage in Love and Deepspace shows as 100%, we should add the double crit damage to those 100. But this gets a little easier as by default, at least from what I've seen in my account, we have a 150 crit damage without any solar memories equipped. So we have to start building from that percentage towards the ideal 1:2 ratio. So if I have 50% crit rate with the 150 crit damage we have by default, we should work on adding that missing 50% to be able to reach that 200% crit damage. Damage boost to weakened. This is a percentage in which I don't personally have an ideal goal to reach, unlike the crit rate and crit damage ratio. But when I go into a battle where I have to match Stalactrums and fight a boss, I make sure to at least equip 2 level +9 or +12 Protocores into my lunar memories to boost my damage once I manage to break the shields. So to have another perspective, I'll quote Duchess Aria's recommendation from her Protocore guide, Love and Deepspace Protocore guide for late game. Here, Duchess Aria gives recommendations based on the type of enemy you're facing in battle. Have in mind that these are recommendations for when we are fully Stalactrum match. For enemies that have 2 Protocore shields, she recommends a full build of damage boost weakened, hopefully reaching a percentage over 100%. This is an excellent approach as you will be breaking their shields constantly, approximately every 15 seconds if using your skill off cooldown, with a 10-second window of weakened state, so the time the enemies spend in their weakened state will be higher than with their shields up, so using all your Delta Protocores with damage boost to weakened is a very wise move in this scenario. As for battles with different types of enemies, like enemies with no shields, with shields, and bosses, you can use different percentages of crit rate, crit damage, and damage boost to weakened to fit your needs. Duchess Aria specifically recommends in her guide to follow a 1:2 ratio. That will be 1 part of crit rate to 2 to crit damage and 2 to damage boost to weakened. This ratio can look something like this. 40% crit rate to 180% crit damage to 80% damage boost to weakened. Personally, to make it more simple for myself, for combat with different types of enemies, I usually use 2 Delta crit rate Protocores and 2 Delta damage boost to weakened Protocores. In the main stats, I focus more on crit rate than crit damage as I find it easier to reach the needed crit damage through solar memories and the substats of all the Protocores. You can, of course, modify this formula to your preference and needs, for example using 1 crit rate Protocore and 3 damage boost to weakened, or 2 crit rate, 1 crit damage and 1 damage boost to weakened, etc. As you will surely gain more experience the more you do battle content, so you'll soon be able to tell in which situations you need more crit or damage boost to weakened, but you can, in the meantime, use this as a base that you can build from. Oath Recovery Boost. Now we're getting into the territory of Solar Protocore stats, specifically Beta Protocores. For Oath Recovery Boost, as it is a percentage that allows you to recharge your Ardent Oath faster, we should strive to get enough so we can, ideally, use our Oath twice in a single battle. By doing some research, I could see that there is some discord around the actual cooldown of Ardent Oath. From what I read in Duchess Aria's guide, Love and Deepspace Guide story, Crit and Weakness build, free-to-play and pay-to-win meta, Mega Whales and Discord Brigadiers, Discord says it's a 66-second cooldown and Duchess Aria says it's a 67-second cooldown. Just to be clear, we are not here to add more fuel to the drama or picking sides. We are here for the numbers and the math. So I went ahead and did some testing myself. I did this test in the attack training feature from the training room without any oath recovery boost protocors, with love interest with their solar pair with rank 0, and did it once connected to Wi-Fi and once using 5G. I used Ardent Oath off cooldown, tapping constantly so that I could ensure to use it as soon as it was available, and recording my testing to ensure precise times. So far, these were the results. As you can see, I got both 66 and 67 second cooldowns through both testings, with alternation between 66 and 67 shifting slightly, so technically both cooldowns are correct. I did some extra digging to get to the core of what could be behind these inconsistencies and ended up with 3 possible explanations. I would get a little technical here, but please bear with me. 1. The game might use a tick-based system. This is a system that a lot of games use to track cooldowns. This system in particular updates the cooldown in set intervals of time that can go from 0.1 second to a whole second. In the case of Love and Deepspace, it's probably 1 second intervals, meaning that the game will check if the skill is ready to use every 1 second. So if Ardent Oath is ready to be used at 66 seconds exactly, you can use it immediately. But if the skill is ready to be used even the tiniest bit past 66 seconds, for example at 66.2, the interval will be updated in the next server second, only allowing us to use the skill at second 67 instead of when the Ardent Oath was ready at 66.2. Second factor, the cooldown could be 66.5 seconds. There is a chance that the cooldown isn't a whole number, so rounding it up or down could be the cause of the inconsistencies in the numbers, letting us use Ardent Oath sometimes at 66 or at 67 seconds. And a third factor that can probably be affecting the cooldowns are game server and internet connection delays. If the cooldown is managed by the server and we have network latency, meaning that there is a delay in the transfer of data or communication between our device and the Love and Deepspace server, we can experience inconsistencies in the cooldown availability of Ardent Oath. Even if the delay is only of milliseconds, together with the possibility that Love and Deepspace uses a tick-based system, these can cause those timing fluctuations from 66 to 67 seconds. As you can see, there might be a lot of reasons as to why the Ardent Oath cooldown is not a precise number, but considering my testing and that around 70% of the time I got 67 seconds, I will consider the cooldown to be 67 here onward, just to make the math more simple. So having this in mind, let's talk about how much Oath recovery boost we should have. Considering the battle duration is 2 minutes or 120 seconds, and that we want to be able to use our Ardent Oath twice, right away we can infer that we need to reduce our cooldown below the 60-second mark. But having in mind all the timing inconsistencies that we talked about before, and that we are human, we should realistically try to bring our cooldown down to around 57 seconds or so, to give ourselves a decent window of time. Using this formula, we can see how the percentage of Oath recovery boost reduces the cooldown of Ardent Oath. 67 seconds multiplied by 1 minus the Oath recovery boost percentage divided by 100. For example, let's see how much a +9 Oath recovery boost Protocore can reduce our cooldown. 67 seconds multiplied by 1 minus 14% gives us about 57.62 seconds, which we can round up to 58 seconds. This means that every 58 seconds or so, we will be able to use our Ardent Oath, leaving us 4 seconds of extra time. Personally, I like to level up my Oath Recovery Boost Protocore up to +12, so I get a 17% of Oath Recovery Boost. That results in a 56-second Ardent Oath cooldown. This leaves me around 8 extra seconds. That is enough time to break some shields, gather or reposition enemies, etc. This is completely a personal preference, as I don't like to rush to use Ardent Oath off cooldown if the conditions are not right. So if you find that using a +9 Oath Recovery Boost Protocore is comfy enough, you go buddy. As long as you get your cooldown under 60 seconds, you'll be able to use your Ardent Oath twice, and that means having at least 11% of Oath Recovery Boost. Oath Strength. This is a stat that is nice to have, but I wouldn't say is a must. As it is a percentage enhancement of the damage we do when using Ardent Oath, it is technically a good addition, but in my opinion, it's not really a necessity when compared to our Oath and Energy Recovery stats. Considering that at +0 the Protocore has a 3.5% of Oath strength, increasing in 0.7 every level up, at level 12 we barely get an 11.9%. Now, let's take Raphael Avis Walker as an example. Here, I want to give a warning. The math wasn't really mathing with the scalings compared to the actual damage output of Ardent Oath when testing. It could be a me error, or an enemy defense, or hidden modifiers that I didn't consider in the formula. I still don't know, but I really want to know what's up, so I'll try asking customer support in the future to get the details of how to properly calculate the actual damage output. I'll let you know what they say, but the example still applies. His Ardent Oath scaling is 1440 flat attack plus 1920% attack. I'm assuming the percentage is from our total attack, so let's say we have 5000 attack and a +9 Oath strength Protocore with a 9.8 boost. The math would be as follows. 1440 plus 5000 multiplied by 1920 divided by 100, that will give us a 97.4k. Then we apply the 9.8 Oath strength, which brings up the damage close to 107k. This would be a little bit over 9500 increase in damage that you'll be able to do in a single instance. So when putting it on a scale with the options of Energy Recovery or Oath Recovery on the other side, those two would be the ones I would put my focus into, instead of marginally increasing the damage of Ardent Oath. So, long story short, you can use a Protocore with Oath strength as a main stat if you want, but I would rather have it in the substats. Expedited Energy Boost. As I mentioned before, this stat helps us recover the energy we consume when using our skills, so reaching a percentage that allows us to have enough energy when we need to use a skill is extremely important. From my own testing, by default we recover a single star of energy every 8 seconds. To calculate the percentage we should strive to have, I will consider that we will be using our resonance skill of cooldown, so every 15 seconds. We use this skill to break shields, so using it off cooldown is a must. Having in mind that we should try to get 2 energy stars every 15 seconds, that means recovering 1 energy every 7.5 seconds. So the equation would be the following. 8 seconds multiplied by 1 minus the expedited energy boost divided by 100 would equal 7.5 seconds. That would give us an expedited energy boost of minimum 6.25%. This is great news, as in my opinion, this is a very generous Protocore starting with 6% at level 0. So to get 2 energy stars every 15 seconds, we could just have a +1 Protocore. But this is the minimum amount of energy regeneration we should have to use our resonance skill of cooldown, so having more is better, as it will allow us to use our active skills from time to time, which means we can deal more damage. The bad news about this stat is that as the percentage applies to a small number, 8 seconds, the return that we get with leveling up is very marginal. For example, with a +0 Protocore with 6% expedited energy boost, we will generate 3 energy stars within 22.56 seconds. With a +6, we will generate 3 energy in 20.83 seconds, and with a +9 Protocore with 16.8%, we will generate 3 energy in 19.97 seconds. That would be a 1.73 and a 0.86 second improvement from level 3 to level 6 to level 9. Considering that Love and Deepspace might use a tick-based system and the probable latency in mind, I would advise you to upgrade your Protocore to levels that give you a reduction in the whole second rather than in the decimals. Specifically, I would recommend leveling your Protocore up to +6 or ideally to +9. You can upgrade to +12 if the substats are good, but for energy purposes, it's not necessary as the improvement will be less than a second from level 9 to level 12. In summary, these are the amounts of each stat that we should strive to have. I'll leave a spreadsheet down in the description for reference, especially for the percentages of Oath Recovery Boost and Expedited Energy Boost if you want to see it in more detail. And finally, to wrap up the stats section, let's talk about the particular stats. HP and Defense. These stats, I categorize them as specific or particular because the potential they have only shines when used with specific companions that scale their skills of HP or defense. They of course help with survivability in battle, but usually with the HP and defense we get from memories and the Alpha Protocore is more than enough. So bringing back the companion table from my memory video, we can see that Saint Forseer, Caleb Farspeyer Coronel, and Xavier Lumiere scale of attack and defense, while Raphael God of the Tides and Silas Abysm Sovereign scale of attack and HP. Now, in regards to a specific amount that you should reach, I haven't really made enough testing to give you a precise number, but if you're in mid to late game, I would dare to suggest a minimum for defense scaling companions would be to reach over 2000 defense. And for HP scaling companions, a minimum of 100,000 HP or so. This is of course subject to change as I do more research and testing, but in my opinion is a reasonable objective to reach and a good starting point that you can build from. Now let's talk about what substats we should look for when farming and selecting protocores. Okay, for starters, a good rule of thumb to follow regarding substats would be to look for protocores with substats from the Universal Stats list. Sadly, Oath Recovery Boost and Expedited Energy Boost are not available in the secondary attributes, so that only leaves us with the following universal stats: Attack Attack Bonus, Crit Rate, Crit Damage, Damage Boost to Weakened, and Oath Strength. But these are not the only useful substats. Time to bring back my table of companion scalings again. As you can see, each 5-star companion has their own set of scalings, so here is another table so we can more easily go through the best substats for each companion. For our standard companions, the universal substat list applies to all of them, with the addition of defense and defense bonus in the case of Saint Forseer and Caleb Farspeyer Coronel. For our myth companions, the universal substat list applies to all of them too, being Saint Master of Fate and now Caleb Ultimate Weapon X02, the ones with attack scalings only. Xavier Lumiere can use defense and defense bonus, while Raphael God of the Tides and Silas Abysm Sovereign have HP and HP bonus added to their lists. As you can see, depending on the companion and his scalings, we can add HP or defense to our ideal stats. Another factor to take into account is if we are in early or mid to late game. If you're in early game, the flat stats like attack, HP, and defense are still beneficial for you, so you can look for those in your substats. But if you are in mid to late game, you should strive to get bonus stats, the ones with the percentages, as they will boost your stats further. Now that we know what main stats and substats to focus on, I want to talk about something regarding stats that I've seen very few people talk about, and it's something that we should acknowledge: Protocol roles and RNG. RNG is an abbreviation for Random Number Generator, but in gaming when someone talks about RNG, they usually are talking about luck. What will luck have to do with protocores? Well, the main stats or primary attributes of the protocores are constant and they never change, but the substats are something completely different. There is the luck factor, the RNG. This is, I would say, the biggest difficulty we encounter when farming protocores and even when leveling them up, and it's basically another layer of gambling in this game. First, when farming protocores, let's say at level 10, we will receive 2 golden protocores, but those 2 protocores can either be one of the 2 colors. Here is our first coin flip. Then, after the color is picked, there will be a roll for what shape the protocol will be, either alpha, beta, gamma, or delta. Then, if it's a beta or a delta, the roll will be to select which one of the 6 possible primary attributes it'll become. And after that, the system rolls for the substats, the secondary attributes. It rolls 4 times. Each roll will be to pick one of the 10 possible secondary attributes, and they can roll in the same attribute even 3 times. This is why sometimes we get protocols with 3 or even 2 substats. But if you look closely, 1 or 2 of the stats will have a bigger number than usual. That's because the rolls added up. And as if that wasn't enough, there is another roll inside those 4 rolls, because the number of each substat is not fixed. It comes from a range of numbers or percentages, so you can get lucky or unlucky with these too. And finally, if you manage to get a nice protocol with good substats, the rolls that you make when upgrading or enhancing every 3 levels are role dependent too. They are not fixed amounts. This is a source of discontentment for me, not only because of the heavy reliance on luck for farming protocores, but because info is not exactly transparent in this aspect, especially when it comes to the possible amounts of each secondary attribute that we could have, which is a shame. So, to try and bring some clarity into the possible roles of the substats, I set up a spreadsheet with the stats from some of the protocores I've farmed and some that I had leveled up to get a sense of the range of the base substats at level 0. And additionally, I did a compilation of all my protocores enhancements and the amount that the substats were enhanced since February. So far, these are the ranges I have obtained. If anything changes, I'll make sure to leave it in a pinned comment. At level 0, these are the substats and amounts that we can get. HP can range from 800 to 1200. Attack can go from 40 to 60. Defense ranges from 20 to 30. Crit rate can range from 1.1 to 1.8%, crit damage from 2.2 to 3.2%, Oath strength can range from 0.8 to 1.5%, damage boost to weaken can go from 1.8 to 2.6%, meanwhile HP, attack and defense bonus range from 7 to 10%. Substats enhancements. Here I want to make a confession. As we saw a few minutes ago, there are some ideal stats that we should look for all companions, right? Having that in mind, the majority of the protocores I have enhanced have crit rate, crit damage, attack bonus, and damage boost to weaken, leading me to lack enough numbers to give you a solid range for some of the substats enhancements, especially flat HP and defense. But analyzing the overall results from what I have compiled so far, it looks like the substats enhancements are half the ranges from the base substats that we get at level 0, so I'm still fairly confident about them. Without further ado, here are the possible enhancement amounts. HP can go from 450 to 600, attack from 20 to 30, defense from 10 to 15, crit rate from 0.6 to 1.5%, crit damage from 1.1 to 1.6%, oath strength from 0.4 to 0.7%, damage boost to weaken from 0.9 to 1.3%, and HP, attack and defense bonus can go from 3.5 to 5%. With these ranges, now you can have an overall sense if you got a lucky roll when farming or enhancing protocores, which I think is a very second important step to identify great from good protocores. The first step being to identify which stats to look for depending on which companion you are building. I wanted to give in-game examples for how to identify good protocores when farming, but I think this video is way too long already and I don't want to bore you to sleepiness. So I'll leave the practical examples and ideal protocores for each companion for part 2. That should be ready sooner than this video in particular, as this one required a lot of work, research, data gathering and analysis, as I didn't want to miss or leave behind any crucial detail. So hopefully I'll bring part 2 in a few weeks, so stay tuned! If you think I missed something or if you have any questions about protocores, let me know down in the comments and I'll try my best to reply as soon as possible. If you are still watching and you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you left a like or a comment. It encourages me to keep making more content like this. And if you'd like to see more battle guides, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any future uploads. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Ciao ciao!